There is magic in your words, there is power in your thoughts, and there is gold in your faith. Every man and woman is standing in a field of invisible treasures, waiting to be spoken into life. The moment you speak in faith, you strike the match that lights the lamp of your destiny. You are not poor because the world has withheld its riches. You are poor only when you withhold your divine authority to call them forth. For every word is a seed, and every seed, when spoken with conviction, must bring forth after its kind. To speak rich is to speak in alignment with divine abundance. It is to reject the language of lack, fear, and limitation, and to declare boldly, I have all I need, and more is on its way. The universe listens when you speak from the heart of certainty. If your words are colored with doubt, your harvest will be uncertain. But if your words carry the tone of divine assurance, every force of nature will conspire to fulfill them. You are the voice of your own creation. Your speech is the wand that shapes your world. To think rich is to dwell in the atmosphere of prosperity before the evidence appears. Thought is the mold into which substance flows. The man who thinks wealth attracts opportunities, ideas, and helpers as naturally as a magnet draws iron. You do not need to chase what is already yours. You need only to become inwardly what you wish to be outwardly. When the mind vibrates in harmony with abundance, lack cannot remain near it. The rich thought is calm, grateful, fearless, for it knows that supply is infinite and ever responsive to the mind that expects it. And then, inevitably, you become rich, not by accident, not by luck, but by law. You become rich when your words and thoughts no longer contradict your desires, when your inner conversation is filled with gratitude instead of complaint, with expectation instead of worry, with vision instead of doubt. Then riches flow to you by divine right. The world outside is only a mirror of the world within. Change the tone of your inner speech, and the reflection must change. You are not a beggar of fate. You are the heir of divine abundance. Every time you affirm prosperity with feeling and faith, invisible doors swing open, unseen helpers move in your favor, and the impossible becomes inevitable. The law is simple, unbreakable, and perfect. As you speak, you think. As you think, you become. Speak the words of wealth, think the thoughts of wealth, and wealth shall clothe itself in your experience. The secret of riches lies not in what you hold, but in what you behold. Hold fast to the vision of plenty. Speak with joy, think with certainty, and act as though the treasure is already yours, for indeed it is. Words are creative forces that shape reality. Every word you speak carries a vibration, a living energy that moves through the unseen and molds the conditions of your visible world. Speech is not merely sound. It is the command of the soul, the decree of the spirit clothed in sound waves. When you speak, you give direction to the invisible substance of life, and it obeys with perfect precision. There is no idle word, for each syllable carries its seed of manifestation. The careless word returns as confusion and limitation, while the inspired word returns as blessing and increase. When a person learns to watch his words, he begins to watch his world. The tongue becomes the pen that writes upon the scroll of destiny. Every affirmation, every declaration, every whispered thought clothed in speech becomes a law unto itself. To say, I can't, is to command limitation. To say, I can, is to awaken divine energy. The universe does not argue, it responds. The law is always saying yes to the consciousness that sends forth the word. When one speaks of success, health, peace, and supply, he aligns his vibration with the flow of the infinite, and that flow rushes to meet him in perfect order. All creation begins in the invisible. Before the world was formed, there was the Word, the divine idea spoken into existence. That same law operates through every human being, for man is made in the image of creative power. What he speaks, he sets in motion. His words draw to him people, circumstances, and opportunities in exact accord with his dominant expressions. To say, I am blessed, is to invite blessing. To say, I am unfortunate, is to summon misfortune. Words are not idle echoes of thought, they are messengers that never return empty-handed. Many speak words of defeat and wonder why their lives are tangled in struggle. They say, "Nothing ever works for me," and the law quietly answers, "As you have spoken, so it shall be." They say, "Money is hard to come by," and the very substance of supply becomes rigid and distant. The law of the spoken word knows no humor, no jest, no disbelief. It reproduces faithfully what it receives. That is why the wise guard their lips as sacred instruments. They understand that every word released carries a decree into the universe, and that decree will take form in time, place, and circumstance. When words are charged with faith, they become irresistible commands. They penetrate the unseen and call forth substance from spirit. The person who speaks with confidence and conviction is not merely making noise. He is issuing an order to the forces of creation. When he says, "All things work together for my good," the law begins to rearrange events, people, and conditions to fulfill that decree. The words themselves contain a vibration that moves the unseen substance into perfect order. The outer world is the shadow of the inner word. The language of faith is different from the language of fear. Fear speaks of loss, separation, and limitation. Faith speaks of fullness, unity, and divine timing. To speak faith is to align your voice with the infinite law of increase. Every positive declaration strengthens the invisible structure of your future. Each word becomes a brick in the temple of manifestation. Over time, these spoken affirmations form a fortress of belief so strong that no appearance of lack can shake it. Words, when spoken consistently in faith, train the mind to see abundance even before it appears. Those who master their speech master their conditions. The one who refuses to speak of illness stops feeding it power. The one who refuses to discuss poverty closes the door on its influence. When you speak only of what you desire, you magnetize it. When you speak of what you fear, you multiply it. The word is like a boomerang. It always returns to its sender. To speak rich words is to send forth wealth. To speak joyful words is to summon joy. To speak peace is to establish peace around you. Words are living vibrations that never die. They echo in the ether until they clothe themselves in form. Even the smallest statement of faith can shift an entire atmosphere. When one stands in the midst of adversity and declares, "There is a way prepared for me," that statement begins to carve a path where none seem to exist. The unseen powers move, the right people appear, and doors open where there were only walls. This is not coincidence. It is the precise operation of the spoken word. Life itself is responsive to language. It bends to the tone of conviction. Those who learn to speak from the heart of faith command the same law that formed the stars. Every word must be weighed before it is released, for once spoken it cannot be recalled. Idle gossip, complaint, or self-pity scatters the energy of creation. Words of blessing, gratitude, and vision gather it. The mind must be trained to pause before it speaks, to ask whether the words about to be released will build or destroy, create or confuse. When the inner language becomes disciplined, the outer life becomes harmonious. Speech becomes a sacred act, a daily ceremony in which the soul gives shape to its highest ideals. The world reflects the cumulative power of spoken thought. Entire nations rise or fall on the strength of words. A single statement of courage can awaken millions. A single utterance of fear can paralyze a multitude. The same law that governs the word of an individual governs the word of humanity. The spoken word carries a collective vibration that molds the destiny of people, communities, and generations. Thus, to speak rich words is not only to bless oneself, but to enrich the fabric of the world. To understand the creative power of words is to hold the key to transformation. It is to realize that life responds not to wishes, but to declarations made in faith. When you affirm, you are not hoping. You are commanding divine substance to assume form. To say, "I am surrounded by success," is to plant a seed in the soil of the infinite. That seed, nourished by faith and repetition, must break forth into visible harvest. Each time you speak the word, you water that seed with energy, attention, and belief. The spoken word is the bridge between thought and manifestation. It takes the invisible image of the mind and brings it into the density of sound, the first stage of form. Words clothe thoughts in vibration, and vibration crystallizes into experience. To speak consciously is to participate knowingly in the act of creation. The one who understands this principle becomes careful with language, for he knows that every sentence is a brush stroke on the canvas of his reality. To speak rich is not vanity, it is alignment with truth. The universe itself is abundant, overflowing, generous beyond measure. To speak poverty is to deny the nature of existence. When you speak prosperity, you harmonize with the rhythm of the cosmos. You tune your vibration to the frequency of success, and life begins to reflect that tone. The words you speak daily, in thought, in prayer, in casual conversation, become the architecture of your destiny. They are the blueprint through which divine substance takes shape. When you understand that words are creative forces that shape reality, you begin to use them as instruments of deliberate manifestation. Each word becomes a sacred command, each phrase a living decree of power. You no longer speak to describe what is, you speak to declare what shall be. You speak not as a beggar pleading for change, but as a creator shaping the unseen into form. You begin to speak from the authority of the divine image within, knowing that your words are laws unto themselves, and that what you decree in faith must be established. Thoughts are the mold through which abundance flows. Every visible thing in your life is but the crystallization of an invisible thought pattern. The mind is the workshop where form begins. It is the silent architect designing the conditions that later appear as health, success, failure, or wealth. Whatever a person persistently thinks upon must ultimately take shape, for thought is the magnet of substance. The unseen responds unfailingly to the dominant idea, held with feeling and faith. The outer world, no matter how solid it seems, is pliable and obedient to the inner current of thought. Nothing enters a man's life uninvited. All is drawn by the silent decree of mental vibration. A rich mind cannot produce poverty, just as a poor mind cannot hold wealth. Each thought is a seed that will bear fruit after its kind. If the soil of the mind is filled with fear, worry, and resentment, the harvest will mirror those qualities. But if the soil is cultivated with gratitude, confidence, and expectation of good, the crop must be one of increase. The thinker holds the key, not circumstance. To think rich is not merely to imagine coins or possessions. It is to dwell in the consciousness of sufficiency, to know inwardly that supply is limitless and forever flowing from the invisible to the visible. The universe does not withhold. The mind that doubts creates the dam. Every individual lives within a mental atmosphere of his own making. This atmosphere is woven from habitual thoughts, thoughts of power or helplessness, abundance or limitation. The thinker breathes his own mental air, and the quality of that air determines his vitality in every sense. When the mind is filled with uplifting, constructive images, it becomes radiant. Its vibration invites prosperity and right action. When the mind is clouded with fear and complaint, it contracts, repelling the very good it seeks. The law is exact. What you continually think upon, you magnetize. Thoughts are magnetic currents drawing to themselves kindred energies. The man who thinks of lack, even while praying for abundance, vibrates in opposition to his desire. The substance of life listens not to words alone but to vibration. The universe translates feeling-toned thought into experience. That is why one may say, "I am prosperous," and yet remain poor, because beneath the words lies the belief in struggle and scarcity. But when the inner thought changes, when one truly feels the abundance already present in the unseen, then outer wealth begins to arrange itself naturally. The thought, not the outer condition, is the true cause. The thinker must therefore guard his mental images as sacred property. Every picture impressed upon the inner mind tends toward expression. The imagination is the womb of creation. If the imagination is filled with visions of success, harmony, and joy, these qualities will manifest in due season. If it is haunted by visions of failure, loss, or rejection, those too will come to pass. The law is impartial, mirroring faithfully whatever it receives. The wise therefore select their thoughts as carefully as a jeweler selects his stones. They polish them daily with meditation, affirmation, and gratitude until they shine with conviction. To think rich is to train the mind to dwell only upon that which uplifts and expands. It is to replace every thought of "I can't" with "all things are possible" through divine intelligence. It is to see opportunities where others see obstacles, to affirm supply where others declare lack. The rich thinker knows that all form begins in the invisible, and so he pays attention to the unseen realm of consciousness. He watches his moods, his inner speech, his secret beliefs, for these are the architects of destiny. Every mental picture is a blueprint waiting to be built in matter. There is no such thing as an unimportant thought. Each one contributes to the mental pattern that governs a person's affairs. A passing worry may seem harmless, but if repeated, it etches itself into the subconscious and begins to reproduce its likeness in experience. Likewise, a single thought of gratitude, if cultivated daily, can dissolve mountains of limitation. The subconscious mind does not argue. It accepts whatever it is told and proceeds to create according to that instruction. To think rich, therefore, is to impress upon this inner mind the constant pattern of abundance, to let no contradictory thought linger long enough to take root. The habit of right thinking must be built through discipline and awareness. The mind, left unattended, drifts toward old patterns of fear and doubt, but when one becomes the watchman at the gate, he begins to notice the tone of every thought and to reject all that does not serve his purpose. Instead of saying, "I can't afford it," he says, "It is not yet in my hands, but it is on its way." Instead of fearing delay, he affirms divine timing. Instead of envying another's success, he blesses it, knowing that it proves abundance is active and available. These new patterns, repeated and believed, begin to carve new channels in consciousness, through which supply can flow freely. Thinking rich is not daydreaming or wishing. It is a state of certainty grounded in spiritual law. It is the unwavering awareness that everything needed for fulfillment already exists in the invisible and must appear when the mental pattern is complete. Just as a mold determines the shape of molten metal, so does thought determine the form of life substance. If the mold is small, the result is small. If the mold is vast, the result is vast. The thinker alone decides the size of his mold. No outer force can limit him, for the creative power operates within, awaiting direction. One may test this law in daily life. Let him spend a week refusing to indulge in any thought of failure or loss. Let him instead hold the inner image of overflowing supply, of every need met easily and joyfully. Soon he will notice changes, a new idea, a chance meeting, an unexpected gift, for the thought has begun to shape the outer current. Each consistent thought of abundance strengthens the invisible bridge between the mind and manifestation. The flow of good responds instantly when obstruction of fear and doubt is removed. The thinker's task is not to create abundance, for abundance already is. It is to create the mental condition that allows it to appear. The universe is eternally pouring out its riches. The only question is whether the vessel of thought is open to receive. A closed mind, filled with disbelief, cannot receive the flow. An open mind, filled with expectation, becomes a channel through which wealth streams naturally. This is why gratitude is the richest thought of all. It opens the door to more. When one feels thankful for unseen blessings, he aligns with the frequency of supply, and that frequency must materialize as visible prosperity. To think rich is also to think generously. The thought of giving expands the consciousness of having. When one thinks of sharing, he multiplies his own portion, for he acknowledges the infinite source. The miserly thought contracts, saying, "There is not enough." The abundant thought expands, declaring, "There is always more." In this expansion, energy begins to move, opportunities arise, and circulation increases. Wealth, like air, must flow to remain vital. The thinker who blesses others' prosperity keeps his own channel open. The one who begrudges or competes tightens the flow, and feels its restriction. The mind is the only factory where conditions are produced. It does not matter how poor the outer situation appears. The moment the thought of abundance is established, the tide begins to turn. The universe must rearrange itself to match the new pattern. Invisible helpers move, ideas flash forth, and doors open as if by miracle. Yet there is no miracle in it, only law. The same law that governs seed and harvest governs thought and manifestation. The rich thinker sows thoughts of success daily, knowing that the harvest cannot fail. He does not uproot his seeds with worry or impatience. He tends them with confidence, and the results are certain. In every era, those who understood this truth rose above conditions that crushed others. They realized that mind is master and circumstance is servant. They learned that thinking richly is not arrogance, but harmony with divine order. Every advancement in art, science, or wealth began first as a thought held with unwavering faith. The invisible becomes visible through the persistence of mental image. The thinker therefore carries within him the entire blueprint of his destiny, for he is forever shaping substance with thought, and the mold he holds determines the abundance that flows through him. Faith aligns speech and mind with divine supply. Faith is the invisible bridge between thought and manifestation, the sacred power that joins the unseen and the seen. It is the assurance that what you have spoken and thought in harmony with truth must come to pass, even when no evidence yet appears. Faith is not mere hope or wish, it is knowing. It is the calm certainty that the invisible substance of the universe responds to conviction and moves swiftly to fulfill it. When speech and thought are united by faith, every word becomes a decree of power and every idea is clothed with life. Faith is the key that turns divine law into visible experience. Without faith, words are hollow and thoughts are wandering vapors. With faith, they are commands that creation obeys. Faith gives form to the invisible, giving weight and direction to the energies of the mind. When one speaks with faith, he speaks from the consciousness of completion, not from desire or lack. He declares what already is in the unseen, and that declaration draws it forth. The universe answers the tone of belief, not the sound of fear. When the heart and mind are joined in the vibration of faith, every door opens, and every force conspires for fulfillment. The mind without faith is divided, and a divided mind cannot stand. One moment it affirms abundance, and the next it doubts. It plants a seed and then uproots it through disbelief. Faith is consistency of vibration. It is the stillness that comes from knowing the law works perfectly. The man of faith does not plead for supply. He recognizes that supply already exists in the realm of spirit, and that his belief is the channel through which it flows. He speaks not to create abundance, but to align with it. His thoughts and words are harmonized in conviction, so there is no contradiction within him. The divine substance moves easily through the vessel that is whole. Faith is the language of divine intelligence. It speaks without hesitation and acts without fear. It sees beyond appearances and claims the unseen reality. When the eyes see lack, faith perceives plenty. When the world shows delay, faith feels fulfillment. The one who lives in faith lives above circumstance. He understands that the outer world is only a reflection of inner conviction, and that conviction can change in an instant. Faith looks through the mist of confusion and declares order. It looks upon emptiness and proclaims abundance. Through that proclamation, the invisible begins to take shape according to the pattern of certainty. Faith is the vibration that harmonizes man with divine supply. It tunes the consciousness to the rhythm of abundance. Every thought of fear lowers the vibration and cuts off the flow. Every thought of faith raises it and opens the floodgates. The one who believes deeply and consistently becomes magnetic. Opportunities, resources, and ideas gravitate toward him, drawn by the steady frequency of his confidence. This is why those who possess faith seem to live under a special grace. It is not chance, it is law. Their faith aligns their entire being with the movement of supply, and the movement must respond. Faith operates through feeling as much as through thought. The heart must believe what the lips declare, for the power lies not in words alone but in the emotion behind them. When the feeling of belief saturates the mind, it becomes a living force that cannot be denied. The universe listens to the emotion of certainty and rushes to materialize it. But when words are spoken with fear or doubt, the signal is confused, and the result is delay. Faith brings coherence to energy. It directs it toward manifestation with laser-like precision. The whole being becomes a single, unwavering statement of truth. There are many who speak of prosperity and yet live in want, because their speech is not infused with faith. They affirm abundance but secretly believe in struggle. Their minds are filled with worry, and worry contradicts every affirmation. True faith does not struggle, it knows. It rests in the assurance that divine law cannot fail. When faith has taken root, there is no tension, no forcing, no desperate pleading. There is only quiet expectation, a calm readiness to receive. The soil of faith is fertile and receptive. It allows the seeds of word and thought to grow in perfect order. Faith is a state of consciousness that cannot coexist with fear. Where faith is, fear dissolves. Fear says, "What if it does not happen?" Faith says, "It is already done." Fear looks at appearances, faith looks at truth. Fear contracts and blocks the flow of energy. Faith expands and invites it. The moment one chooses faith, the inner atmosphere clears, and the invisible begins to move. It is not always visible at once, but the movement is certain. The law is perfect and exact. It operates according to vibration, not time. Faith sets the vibration of fulfillment, and fulfillment must appear. Faith aligns both speech and mind because it unites them in harmony. When the mind thinks abundance and the lips speak abundance, but the heart trembles in doubt, there is dissonance. Faith dissolves that dissonance. It fuses the spoken word and the inner belief into one current of creative power. The man who has faith does not need to repeat his affirmations with effort. His very tone carries authority. The energy of his conviction does the work. His thoughts are steady. His words are clear. His expectations unwavering. In this unity, the divine supply flows freely, unhindered by contradiction. The mind of faith lives in the present moment of sufficiency. It does not postpone good to the future or mourn its absence in the past. It lives in the eternal now, where all things are already complete. The thinker who holds this awareness becomes a magnet for provision. He expects good at every turn, and expectation opens the door for reception. Faith never asks when or how, it only knows that it is. The how belongs to divine intelligence, which arranges all details in perfect sequence. Faith simply provides the vibration through which that intelligence works. When speech and thought are filled with faith, even the smallest word becomes creative. "It is well," spoken in faith, heals conditions that years of fear could not. "I am supplied," uttered with conviction, draws provision from unexpected channels. Faith does not depend upon outer means, for it is rooted in inner knowing. It looks to the invisible source, confident that the visible will follow. In this way, faith transforms scarcity into sufficiency without struggle. The outer world merely catches up to the inner belief. Faith must be practiced like an art. The mind must be trained to believe before seeing, to rest in assurance before evidence. Every moment of doubt is an opportunity to reaffirm truth. Each challenge becomes a test of alignment. Will you believe the outer appearance or the inner law? Those who choose faith consistently build a consciousness so strong that no condition can disturb it. Their words carry the weight of certainty, and their thoughts are radiant with power. Wherever they go, things seem to prosper, for their vibration of faith calls forth abundance wherever it moves. Faith is the great harmonizer between the visible and the invisible. It joins the infinite supply of spirit with the finite channel of experience. The supply is always present. Faith opens the gate. Without faith, the gate remains closed, and man wanders in apparent lack though he stands in the midst of plenty. When he learns to trust the unseen, to speak and think as though the good were already manifest, the gate swings wide, and life rushes in. Faith is not earned, it is awakened. It is the remembrance of man's true identity as the expression of divine abundance. The one who lives in faith walks in quiet confidence. He knows that every need is met before it is spoken. His thoughts are steady, his words are calm, his heart is untroubled. He may pass through appearances of lack, yet he remains unmoved, for his faith keeps him anchored in divine law. He does not struggle to make things happen. He allows them to unfold in perfect rhythm. His alignment with the divine is complete, and through that alignment every word and thought bears fruit in perfect time. Gratitude multiplies every form of prosperity. Gratitude is the golden key that unlocks the storehouse of the universe, the divine magnet that draws ever-increasing good to the one who gives thanks. It is not merely a polite gesture or a momentary emotion. It is a spiritual vibration, a living force that harmonizes consciousness with abundance. When the heart is filled with genuine appreciation, the channels of supply open wide, and invisible substance rushes forth to manifest as visible blessing. Gratitude transforms the smallest good into greater good, the faintest light into radiance, the beginning of prosperity into overflowing abundance. To live in gratitude is to live in the awareness of plenty. It is to look upon every circumstance and say, there is something good unfolding here. Gratitude does not wait for perfection before it speaks. It blesses what is present, knowing that blessing increases the harvest. When a person gives thanks for what he already has, he multiplies its power. When he complains about what he lacks, he diminishes his supply. The law is simple and unerring. Whatever you praise expands, whatever you condemn contracts. Gratitude is the song that calls forth increase from the heart of the universe. Gratitude changes the atmosphere of the mind. It lifts thought from struggle to peace, from fear to confidence, from lack to plenty. When one begins to give thanks deliberately and consistently, his vibration rises, and the outer world begins to rearrange itself to match that higher tone. The unseen substance of life moves toward the mind that expects good. Gratitude is that expectation in action. It is faith made visible through joy. Each grateful thought sends out a wave of energy that attracts corresponding blessings. To say thank you with feeling is to set the law of increase into motion. The ungrateful mind lives in darkness, seeing only what is missing. It complains of delay, misfortune, or imperfection, and by its own words it multiplies those very conditions. The grateful mind sees light in all things. It looks beyond appearances to the promise hidden within. Gratitude does not deny difficulty, it redeems it. It knows that even in challenge there is a gift, even in loss a seed of restoration. The grateful soul does not say, "I will be thankful when things improve." It says, "Things improve because I am thankful." In that awareness, the vibration of scarcity dissolves, and the vibration of prosperity takes its place. Gratitude is not limited to words but must be felt deeply. To utter thanks without feeling is to repeat a form without power. The heart must be engaged, for it is the emotion of appreciation that draws the invisible good into form. When one feels truly thankful for what is, the energy of life responds instantly. The feeling of gratitude expands the consciousness of supply until there is no room for fear or want. Every thought of thankfulness adds another measure of richness to experience, for the universe mirrors the quality of inner feeling. The practice of gratitude turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. The simple meal becomes a feast when blessed with appreciation. The humble home becomes a palace when filled with thanksgiving. The smallest coin given with joy becomes the seed of great increase. Gratitude transforms perception. It allows the eyes to see abundance where others see lack. It awakens the realization that all of life is a gift, continually offered from the infinite to the finite. When one lives in this realization, he ceases to struggle for more and begins to attract more naturally. Gratitude multiplies prosperity because it keeps the channel of giving and receiving open. The universe is a system of circulation. What flows out in praise and appreciation must return multiplied. When you give thanks for every good that comes, you acknowledge its source and thereby strengthen your connection to it. The more you recognize the divine supply, the more freely it flows. To be ungrateful is to break that connection, to close the circuit of energy and block the flow. But when gratitude is constant, circulation is complete, and abundance moves in a perfect, rhythmic exchange. The grateful person is never poor, for he sees wealth in every direction. He knows that every breath is a blessing, every sunrise a renewal, every opportunity a doorway to increase. Gratitude shifts the focus from what is missing to what is present, and that shift is the alchemy of abundance. When you are grateful, you declare that you already possess the essence of what you seek. The universe responds to that declaration by sending more of the same vibration. Gratitude says, "I have," and the law replies, "More shall be given." Complaint says, "I lack," and the law replies, "Even that which you have shall be taken away." Gratitude harmonizes the mind with divine intelligence. It opens the intuition, clears the emotions, and aligns thought with truth. In gratitude, the mind ceases to struggle and enters the flow of infinite supply. The grateful person is peaceful because he trusts the law. He knows that behind every experience lies a hidden good, waiting to be revealed through appreciation. Even apparent setbacks become steps forward when met with gratitude. The vibration of thankfulness transmutes adversity into advancement. It is the philosopher's stone of consciousness, turning every experience into gold. True gratitude is unconditional. It does not depend on outer success or comfort, but arises from the recognition of divine order in all things. To be grateful only when things go well is to misunderstand the law. The wise give thanks equally for challenges and triumphs, for both serve to unfold greater good. The one who can bless the storm as well as the sunshine holds dominion over circumstance. Gratitude makes him master of his fate, because it keeps his vibration anchored in abundance, regardless of appearances. Gratitude must be practiced daily until it becomes the natural tone of thought. Each morning can begin with words of thanks for the breath of life, for the opportunities unseen but certain, for the prosperity already established in the invisible. Each evening can close with remembrance of every blessing received. As this habit deepens, the mind becomes a magnet for good. Synchronicities appear, doors open easily, help comes from unexpected places. Gratitude is not only a spiritual virtue, it is a practical force that changes outcomes. The grateful person finds favor wherever he goes, because his energy uplifts and inspires. Gratitude and prosperity are inseparable, because they are expressions of the same truth, that all is already given. The more one realizes this, the less one clings or fears. Gratitude dissolves anxiety by affirming the abundance of the moment. It brings serenity to the restless heart and certainty to the doubtful mind. Through gratitude, the consciousness of lack disappears, and only fullness remains. When this state becomes permanent, prosperity ceases to be something pursued. It becomes a constant companion. Gratitude also strengthens faith. Every act of thanksgiving is an affirmation that the law is working, that good is on its way or already present. When you give thanks for what has not yet appeared, you declare your trust in divine timing. You say to the universe, "I know my supply is here even though I do not yet see it." This act of unseen gratitude is one of the highest forms of faith, and it never fails to bring forth visible proof. The invisible responds to acknowledgement. The more you recognize its presence, the more it reveals itself in tangible form. Gratitude is contagious. It radiates outward and blesses all it touches. The person who lives in thankfulness becomes a center of upliftment, inspiring others to see good in their own lives. This collective vibration of gratitude amplifies prosperity on every level, in homes, communities, and nations. The grateful heart sends out currents of harmony that touch distant places, drawing back waves of goodwill, opportunity, and peace. The law of circulation operates universally. As you give thanks, you give energy to the source, and that energy returns, magnified. Even in silence, gratitude speaks. It is the inner song of the soul recognizing its unity with the divine source. When one lives in this state, nothing is taken for granted. Every moment becomes sacred, every encounter meaningful. Gratitude awakens awareness of the invisible abundance that sustains all things. It brings light into the mind, order into affairs, and beauty into the smallest details of life. It keeps the door of blessing always open, for the grateful heart and the giving universe are forever in harmony. Inner conviction manifests outer riches. The world a person sees is the mirror of the conviction he holds within. Every event, opportunity, and circumstance reflects the state of his belief. Conviction is the power behind creation. It is thought and word infused with unwavering certainty. What a man feels to be true in the depths of his consciousness becomes the law of his life. He may not know how or when, but the outer world must rearrange itself to match the inner decree. Conviction is not mere belief. It is knowing beyond question, the still assurance that the thing desired is already accomplished in the unseen and will appear at the appointed hour. Inner conviction is the foundation of all manifestation. Without it, words are empty and thoughts are unstable. Conviction is the silent force that gives substance to every affirmation. When one speaks or thinks with conviction, his energy carries authority and life itself responds. The difference between wishing and knowing is the difference between delay and fulfillment. Wishing looks outward for confirmation. Conviction knows inwardly that the confirmation is already secured. The moment conviction is born, the creative process is complete in the invisible. The visible simply unfolds to match it, step by step. Conviction lives not in the mind alone, but in the feeling nature. It is a vibration of certainty that permeates thought, emotion, and body. When the entire being agrees with the vision, the power of creation flows without resistance. The man who truly knows he is prosperous will act, speak, and think from prosperity in every moment. His actions become natural expressions of his belief. He no longer tries to make wealth happen. He allows it to reveal itself through his assured attitude. Conviction is the point where faith becomes substance, where invisible energy condenses into tangible form. Inner conviction cannot be borrowed or imitated. It must be built from within. It comes through alignment with truth, through repeated recognition of divine law. Each time a person affirms abundance and sees even a small proof of it, his conviction deepens. Doubt weakens the flow, but every experience of demonstration strengthens it. Conviction is cumulative, growing stronger as evidence of the law's reliability appears. The soul learns to trust the invisible more than the shifting appearances of the outer world. This trust becomes a steady flame that no circumstance can extinguish. Conviction is magnetic. It draws to itself everything necessary for fulfillment. People, opportunities, and ideas begin to gather around the one who is sure of his inner reality. Life cooperates with conviction, for it recognizes authority. The man of conviction speaks few words, but his words carry weight. He does not argue or persuade. His quiet certainty moves mountains. The one who doubts scatters his energy, but the one who knows stands as a center of attraction. The law of mind cannot resist the vibration of complete assurance. It rushes to embody it in form. Conviction must be cultivated through practice. The mind must be trained to hold the vision steady even when appearances contradict it. Every test becomes an opportunity to prove the strength of belief. When outer conditions seem to falter, the inner voice must remain firm, saying, "This too is working for my good." Persistence in this inner stance builds unshakable conviction. The outer world is not changed by effort or force, but by the steadfast radiation of certainty. The moment you cease to question the outcome, the universe begins to deliver it. Inner conviction arises from unity with divine intelligence. When the mind knows it is one with the source of all supply, it can no longer fear limitation. It realizes that it is not seeking abundance but expressing it. Conviction is born from this realization of oneness. The individual ceases to struggle for external proof and begins to rest in inner assurance. He becomes a channel for the infinite, through which riches flow freely. Every outer gain is the reflection of this inner state of completeness. The consciousness of lack cannot coexist with conviction of abundance. One must yield to the other. The man who possesses true conviction does not depend on chance, luck, or approval. His faith in divine order becomes his only security. He knows that the law of correspondence cannot fail, that outer conditions must conform to inner belief. Therefore, he guards his convictions as sacred treasures. He does not entertain thoughts of failure, for he understands that each negative thought is a seed of delay. His mind becomes a sanctuary for truth, a chamber where the pattern of wealth is held in perfect form until it manifests in the visible. Conviction transforms thought from idle speculation into creative command. When you affirm, "I am successful," and your whole being feels the reality of it, that statement becomes law. The conviction itself sets invisible forces in motion. Ideas begin to arise, inspiration flows, and outer circumstances adjust to accommodate the conviction. The law does not act through emotion alone, it acts through the alignment of mind, feeling, and will. When these three are harmonized in conviction, manifestation is inevitable. The outer world is compelled to obey the certainty of the inner one. To build conviction, one must continually return to the awareness of divine truth. Every time doubt appears, it must be replaced with affirmation of the law. Each repetition deepens the groove of certainty in consciousness. Over time, this inner knowing becomes automatic. It no longer requires effort. The individual simply moves through life expecting good, and that expectation draws abundance, as naturally as the sun draws the flower from its seed. Conviction is not noise or excitement. It is quiet power, steady and sure, unmoved by appearances. Conviction can be felt in the body as peace, in the mind as clarity, and in the spirit as joy. When one is convinced of good, tension dissolves. There is no need to grasp or control, for the outcome is already secured. This calm assurance is the hallmark of creative mastery. The one who feels deeply that all is well radiates that feeling into his environment, and the environment reflects it back. People sense his confidence and respond to it. Opportunities arise where there were none before. The vibration of certainty organizes chaos into order. Every man lives according to his conviction, whether he knows it or not. Some are convinced of struggle, and they live in struggle. Some are convinced of limitation, and limitation surrounds them. Others are convinced of plenty, and plenty flows to them with ease. The universe does not choose, it reflects. It mirrors the image impressed upon it by conviction. Therefore, the wise take care to impress only what they wish to see expressed. They hold the inner image of success until it becomes their natural state of mind. The moment the image becomes conviction, it begins to externalize. Conviction is the divine creative spark within every soul. It is the voice of certainty that whispers, "It is done," even when the outer world seems silent. Those who cultivate this voice become masters of manifestation. They no longer depend on external signs to confirm their belief. Their belief itself becomes the sign. Every outer demonstration is simply the echo of the conviction already established within. The deeper the conviction, the faster the echo returns. Shallow belief produces fleeting results. Deep conviction produces enduring success. To live in conviction is to live in harmony with universal law. It is to trust that what is held firmly in consciousness must take form. The universe does not resist conviction, it yields to it. Every great achievement, every invention, every fortune began as an inner certainty long before it became visible. The inventor who believed in his idea beyond doubt eventually brought it forth. The artist, who felt the reality of beauty within himself, painted it into existence. The thinker who knew truth in his heart became its living expression. The pattern is always the same. Inner conviction first, outer manifestation after. Conviction dissolves limitation because it recognizes none. It sees beyond appearances of lack and affirms the abundance behind them. It speaks from the mountain rather than the valley. It knows that all things are possible to the consciousness that believes. The man of conviction does not fight obstacles, he transcends them through his inner certainty. He does not fear delay, for he knows divine timing is perfect. He does not measure progress by outer signs, but by the peace within. His conviction becomes his compass, guiding him unerringly toward fulfillment. The power of conviction grows stronger the more it is exercised. Each act of faith, each demonstration, each answered prayer strengthens the foundation. Soon conviction becomes unshakable, a permanent state of awareness. It becomes the natural tone of thought, the invisible force behind every success. Outer riches, money, opportunities, influence become reflections of this inner wealth. They are not the goal but the inevitable result of a consciousness convinced of its own abundance. When conviction fills the heart, struggle ceases. The individual no longer works to prove or earn, he works to express. His actions flow with purpose and ease, guided by intuition rather than fear. The results he receives mirror the peace and confidence within him. He is no longer a seeker of prosperity, but its embodiment. The law of life can do nothing else but reproduce his inner conviction in visible form, for that is its eternal function, to make outer that which is believed within.